The dust-laden wind carried the sound of her muffled sobs across the wooden platform of Wildwood Station as Daisy Jenkins sat hunched on her trunk, her swollen belly visible beneath her threadbare calico dress, tears streaming down her dirt-smudged face, unaware that her life was about to change forever. Montana Territory, 1878, the afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the small railway depot nestled between rolling hills and endless prairie. Daisy pressed her handkerchief against her mouth, trying to stifle the sounds of her despair. At 20 years old, 7 months pregnant, and abandoned by the man who had promised to marry her, she had nowhere to go. The station master had already informed her that the next train wouldn't arrive for 3 days, and the small waiting room was closed for repairs after a recent brawl had left the windows shattered. Her blonde hair, once neatly pinned beneath her bonnet, now hung in loose strands around her tear-stained face. The few passengers who had disembarked with her had long since departed, collected by waiting family members or hired carriages bound for the growing town of Wildwood several miles away. "Nowhere else to go, miss?" the station master had asked before locking up his office for the night, his expression a mixture of pity and discomfort at her obvious condition. "No, sir," she had whispered, clutching her small carpet bag containing all that remained of her former life in Boston. Now, as the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, Daisy contemplated her options. The promises Thomas had made seemed so genuine: a new life in Montana, a wedding upon arrival, a small homestead waiting for them. But his telegram 3 weeks ago had been painfully clear. "Do not come, stop, situation changed, stop." She had already sold everything and purchased her non-refundable ticket. With her parents dead and her reputation in tatters due to her condition, returning to Boston was impossible. The sound of approaching hoofbeats broke through her thoughts. Daisy hastily wiped her eyes, not wanting to appear more pathetic than she already felt. A tall figure on horseback emerged from the dusty trail leading to town. The rider pulled his horse to a stop at the platform's edge. From beneath the brim of his well-worn Stetson, sharp blue eyes assessed the situation quickly. The man dismounted in one fluid motion, his spurs jingling against the wooden boards as he approached. "Madam," he said, removing his hat to reveal sun-streaked brown hair. "Station's closed till Wednesday. You've been left stranded," Daisy nodded, unable to form words through her tight throat. "I'm Adam Prescott," he continued, his voice carrying the slight drawl of someone who'd spent years in the territory. "I work the Double Circle Ranch about 10 miles north of here." "Daisy Jenkins," she managed, attempting to stand but finding her legs had gone numb from sitting so long. Adam's gaze fell to her rounded belly, then quickly back to her face. His expression revealed no judgment, just concern. "You got folks waiting on you somewhere, Miss Jenkins?" The simple question unleashed a fresh wave of tears. Between sobs, Daisy explained her situation: the man who had promised marriage, the baby due in less than 2 months, her complete lack of connections in the territory. Adam listened quietly, his weathered face revealing little. When she finished, he nodded once decisively. "Can't leave you sitting here for 3 days, not in your condition." He glanced at the darkening sky. "Night's coming and there's wolves in these parts, not to mention less savory types who might happen by." Daisy clutched her bag tighter. "I don't mean to be a burden." "No burden." Adam moved toward her trunk. "Ranch I work for is owned by the Hendersons. Mrs. Henderson's a good woman. She'll know what to do." He tested the weight of her trunk. "This all you got?" "Yes, sir." Adam lifted the trunk with ease, securing it to his saddle with practiced movements. Then he turned back to her, hesitation briefly crossing his features. "Miss Jenkins, I'm afraid there's no delicate way to do this. My horse is steady, but it's a fair distance to the ranch." Understanding dawned on Daisy. I've never ridden before. You'll ride in front of me, I'll keep you secure." He approached, respectfully offering his hand. "If you'll allow it." Daisy had been raised properly in Boston society. Riding alone with a strange man would have been unthinkable mere months ago, but her circumstances had changed drastically. She placed her trembling hand in his calloused palm. With surprising gentleness, Adam helped her to her feet, waiting patiently as she steadied herself. Then, with movements that telegraphed each action before he made it, he lifted her onto his horse. Daisy gasped at the unfamiliar height, clutching the saddle horn desperately. "Easy now," Adam murmured, adjusting her skirts for modesty before mounting behind her. Maverick hears gentle as they come. The solid warmth of his chest against her back was both improper and reassuring. Adam reached around her to take the reins, creating a secure circle of his arms. "I promise you'll be safe, Miss Jenkins," he said quietly near her ear. "I know you got no reason to trust a stranger's word, considering your circumstances, but I swear on my mother's grave I'll see you somewhere safe before nightfall." As they rode away from the station, Daisy's tears gradually subsided. The steady rhythm of the horse's gait and the unexpected security of Adam's presence gave her the first moment of peace she'd felt in months. "Thank you," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if he heard her over the wind that had begun to pick up across the open prairie. "Don't thank me yet," he replied. "Still got a ways to go." The fading light painted the endless grasslands in shades of gold and amber. In the distance, purple mountains stood sentinel against the darkening sky. Despite her circumstances, Daisy couldn't help but be struck by the wild beauty surrounding them. "It's beautiful here," she said softly. "That it is," Adam agreed. "Different from Boston, I expect. Very different." The brick buildings and crowded streets of her hometown seemed a lifetime away. They rode in companionable silence for some time, the only sounds the creak of leather, the steady hoofbeats, and the whisper of wind through the tall grass. As darkness began to fall in earnest, lights appeared in the distance, the welcoming glow of windows from a sprawling ranch house. "Double Circle," Adam explained. "Been working here since I was 18. Mrs. Henderson, she's originally from Philadelphia. Might be nice for you to talk with someone from back east." The ranch house grew larger as they approached. Several outbuildings formed a loose circle around the main structure, with corrals and a barn off to one side. A dog began barking, announcing their arrival. The front door opened, spilling warm lamplight onto the porch. A woman in her 50s stood silhouetted against the glow. "Adam, that you coming in so late?" she called. "Yes, madam," he replied, guiding the horse to the hitching post. "Found someone stranded at the depot, needs some assistance." Mrs. Henderson stepped closer, her expression changing to one of concern as she saw Daisy. "Oh, you poor dear. Come inside immediately." Adam dismounted first, then carefully helped Daisy down. Her legs nearly buckled after the long ride, but his steady hands kept her upright. "Thank you," she whispered again, this time certain he heard. "I'll see to your trunk," he replied, his voice carrying a gentle quality that hadn't been there before. Mrs. Henderson bustled forward, taking Daisy's arm. "Come along, dear, you look exhausted and in your condition." "Adam, bring her things to the blue room after you've seen to your horse." The warmth of the ranch house enveloped Daisy as she crossed the threshold. The scent of fresh baked bread and beef stew made her stomach growl embarrassingly. "When did you last eat, child?" Mrs. Henderson asked, guiding her to a chair at a massive oak dining table. "Yesterday evening, madam," Daisy admitted. "I had some bread this morning, but say no more." The older woman moved efficiently around the kitchen, ladling stew into a bowl. "Eat first, then we'll talk." Daisy didn't need to be told twice. She ate gratefully while Mrs. Henderson, call me Margaret, dear, kept up a soothing stream of conversation that required little response. By the time Adam entered through the back door, she had finished her second helping and was feeling more human than she had in days. "Your trunk's in the blue room," he informed her, removing his hat and hanging it on a peg by the door. He'd clearly taken time to wash up. His face was clean and his hair damp at the temples. "Adam's told me your situation," Margaret said gently. "I want you to know you're welcome to stay here until you decide what's best for you and your baby." Fresh tears sprang to Daisy's eyes at this unexpected kindness. "I can work," she offered. "I can cook and clean and sew. I don't expect charity." "No one said anything about charity," Margaret replied firmly. "We can always use another pair of hands around here. The ranch hands keep me busy enough with mending and cooking, and I've been saying for years I need help with the household." "That's very generous," Daisy said, "but I wouldn't want to impose nonsense. It's settled." Margaret stood, signaling an end to discussion. "Now you need rest. We'll talk more in the morning." Adam, who had been quietly eating his own supper at the far end of the table, stood as well. "Mrs. Henderson's right, you've had a long day." Margaret showed Daisy to a small but comfortable bedroom with blue gingham curtains and a hand-stitched quilt on the brass bed. Her trunk sat at the foot of the bed, a reminder of how swiftly her life had changed in just a few hours. "The washroom's down the hall," Margaret explained. "There's fresh water in the pitcher and towels in the chest. Sleep as long as you need tomorrow." Left alone, Daisy sank onto the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by the day's events. Just hours ago, she had been contemplating spending the night huddled on the depot platform, afraid and alone. Now she was safe, fed, and treated with kindness by strangers who asked nothing in return. As she prepared for bed, she heard low voices from the kitchen, Adam and Margaret discussing her situation. She assumed. Unable to make out their words, she focused instead on the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch at night. The distant lowing of cattle, the occasional whinny of a horse, the whisper of wind across the vast prairie outside her window. For the first time in months, as she drifted toward sleep, Daisy felt something close to hope. Morning brought the sounds of a working ranch in full swing. Daisy dressed carefully in one of her few remaining dresses, struggling slightly with the buttons over her pregnant belly. When she emerged from her room, she found Margaret at the stove, surrounded by the aromas of coffee, bacon, and biscuits. "Good morning, dear," the older woman greeted her warmly. "Sleep well, better than I have in weeks," Daisy admitted. "May I help with breakfast? You can set the table." "The men will be in shortly." Margaret nodded toward a cupboard. "Plates are there, silverware in that drawer." As Daisy arranged places for what appeared to be at least 10 people, she asked, "How many work here?" "8 regular hands, plus Adam as foreman and Mr. Henderson when he's home." "He's in Helena on business this week." Margaret expertly flipped bacon in a cast iron skillet. "Plus there's Hank, our cook for the bunkhouse, but he likes to take Sundays off, so the men eat here." True to Margaret's prediction, the back door soon opened, admitting a stream of dusty, hungry men who nodded respectfully to Daisy before taking their places. Adam was among the last to enter, and his eyes sought hers immediately. "Morning, Miss Jenkins," he said, his voice carrying above the general rumble of conversation. "Hope you rested well." "I did, thank you," she replied, feeling an unexpected flush of warmth at his concern. Margaret made the introductions as the men ate, with the focused intensity of those who worked hard physically. Daisy tried to remember names. Grady, the oldest hand with a silver-streaked beard; young Billy, barely 20 and freckle-faced; Elias, silent and watchful with kind eyes; and the others who blurred together in her tired mind. Throughout the meal, she noticed Adam's gaze returning to her periodically, assessing yet respectful. When breakfast concluded and the men filed out to begin their day's work, he lingered. "Miss Jenkins," he began, hat in hand, "I'm riding into town today for supplies. Mrs. Henderson mentioned you might have some things you need." "That's thoughtful, but I couldn't. A list would be fine," he interrupted gently. "No need to discuss particulars." Daisy realized he was offering to purchase the feminine items she might need for her confinement without embarrassing her by making her specify them. Her cheeks heated at his consideration. "Thank you," she managed. "I'll write something down." After he left, Margaret showed Daisy around the house, explaining the routine and introducing her to the rhythm of ranch life. By mid-afternoon, Daisy had helped prepare lunch for the hands, assisted with mending shirts, and begun sorting through linens that needed attention. "You've been a godsend," Margaret declared as they worked side by side. "I've been falling behind on household matters for months." "I'm grateful for the work," Daisy replied honestly, "and for your kindness." "Nonsense, I always wanted a daughter." Margaret's expression softened. "Had 3 boys, but they're all grown and gone now, one in California, one in Denver, and one in the ground at Shiloh." "I'm sorry," Daisy said softly. "It was a long time ago." Margaret's capable hands continued folding as she spoke. "Life out here teaches you to go on no matter what." "Speaking of which, we should talk about your plans." Daisy's hands stilled. I don't have any, not anymore." "What about the baby's father? This Thomas fellow Adam mentioned. He made it clear he doesn't want us." The pain of rejection still stung. Said his situation had changed. "I later learned from another passenger that he'd married someone else, a cattle baron's daughter with a sizable dowry." Margaret's lips thinned. "Some men aren't worth the air they breathe." "I thought he loved me," Daisy whispered. "We were going to build a life here together." And instead, you're left to face the consequences alone. Margaret shook her head. It's not right, but it's hardly the first time I've seen it happen. The question is, what now? I don't know, Daisy admitted. I have a little money saved, but not enough to return east, even if I had somewhere to go, and no respectable household would hire an unmarried mother. You could stay here, Margaret offered. At least until after the baby comes. We have the room, and I meant what I said about needing help. You've already done so much. Let me be plain, Daisy. I like you. You work hard and don't complain. The ranch needs someone like you, especially with Mr. Henderson talking about expanding operations next year. Margaret set aside the folded linens. Besides, what kind of Christian would I be if I turned away someone in need? Tears welled in Daisy's eyes. Thank you, I don't know what else to say. Say you'll stay, at least through your confinement. We can figure out the rest later. Daisy nodded, overcome with gratitude. I'll stay. Adam returned late that afternoon, his wagon loaded with supplies. He enlisted Billy and Elias to help unload while he personally carried several parcels into the house. Your items, Miss Jenkins, he said quietly, handing her a package wrapped in brown paper. Hope I got everything right. Daisy accepted it gratefully. Thank you, Mr. Prescott. Adam, he corrected. If you're staying on, no need for formalities. You knew I'd stay. A slight smile crossed his features. Mrs. Henderson isn't one to take no for an answer when she's made up her mind about something. Their fingers brushed as she took the package, sending an unexpected tingle up her arm. Daisy quickly attributed it to simple gratitude for his kindness. I should help with supper, she said, stepping back. Adam nodded. I'll be in later, got to check on a sick calf first. As days turned into weeks, Daisy settled into life at the double circle. Her body grew heavier with her advancing pregnancy, but Margaret ensured she rested regularly and ate well. The ranch hands treated her with a combination of respect and protective courtesy that warmed her heart, tipping their hats when they passed her hanging laundry and offering to carry heavy items without making her feel helpless. Adam, however, remained something of an enigma. He was unfailingly polite, checking on her welfare daily, but maintaining a careful distance that Daisy found both appropriate and, strangely, disappointing. She often caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking, his expression unreadable. One evening, as October painted the mountains with early snow and brought a chill to the air, Daisy sat on the front porch, wrapped in a shawl and enjoying a rare moment of solitude. The setting sun cast long shadows across the yard, and the first stars had begun to appear in the darkening sky. The sound of approaching footsteps made her turn. Adam climbed the porch steps, removing his hat as he did so. Evening, Miss Jenkins. Daisy, he corrected himself. Mind if I join you, please? She gestured to the adjacent chair. He settled beside her, his long legs stretched out before him. For several minutes they sat in companionable silence, watching night claim the land. Beautiful, isn't it? Adam finally said, his voice low. It is, Daisy agreed. So different from Boston. There the buildings block most of the sky. Can't imagine living someplace where you can't see the stars. He leaned back, his profile strong in the fading light. Been meaning to ask you something. Daisy tensed slightly. Yes, this man, Thomas. Adam's voice held a careful neutrality. You loved him. The question caught her off guard. I thought I did, she answered honestly. Now I wonder if I loved the idea of him more than the man himself. We only courted for 4 months before he left for Montana. Adam nodded slowly. And the baby is his, yes. Daisy's hand moved protectively to her belly. He knows, that's why. Her voice trailed off. Why he told you not to come, Adam finished for her. Yes, the admission hurt less than she expected. I was foolish to believe his promises. Not foolish, Adam said firmly, trusting. There's a difference. They fell silent again. From the barn came the soft nickering of horses settling for the night. My sister was in a similar situation, Adam said suddenly, 6 years ago. Man promised to marry her, then disappeared when she told him she was expecting. Daisy turned to him, surprised by this personal revelation. What happened to her? Adam's expression darkened. Died in childbirth, her and the baby both. No doctor for 50 miles. His hands tightened on the arms of his chair. I was working a drive in Kansas, didn't make it back in time. I'm so sorry, Daisy whispered. Been carrying that weight a long time, he admitted. Not being there when she needed me, understanding dawned on Daisy. Is that why you stopped at the depot, why you helped me? Adam met her gaze directly. Initially, maybe. Couldn't ride past another woman in trouble, but now, he paused, seeming to search for words. Now it's different. Different how? Daisy's heart beat faster. Before he could answer, the front door opened, spilling lamplight onto the porch. There you two are, Margaret called. Supper's ready. The moment broken, Adam stood, offering Daisy his hand. We should go in. As she placed her fingers in his, Daisy wondered what he had been about to say. The question lingered in her mind throughout the evening, but Adam gave no indication of continuing their conversation, maintaining his usual polite distance during supper. Later that night, as she prepared for bed, Daisy found herself replaying their exchange. There had been something in Adam's eyes, something beyond kindness or obligation that made her wonder if perhaps he saw her as more than just a responsibility or a reminder of his sister. The thought brought both comfort and confusion. Her situation was precarious enough without entertaining romantic notions about a man she barely knew, especially when she was carrying another man's child. Yet as she drifted toward sleep, Daisy couldn't help but think of Adam's steady presence, his quiet strength, and the way his rare smiles transformed his serious face into something remarkably handsome. The next few weeks brought increasing discomfort as Daisy's time grew near. Dr. Bennett from Wildwood visited twice, pronouncing her healthy but warning that first babies often came early. Margaret began preparing the small room adjacent to Daisy's as a nursery, bringing down a cradle that had held her own sons decades earlier. It's too much, Daisy protested when she saw Margaret polishing the walnut wood one afternoon. Nonsense, the older woman replied, been gathering dust in the attic. Besides, every baby deserves a proper place to sleep. Adam, meanwhile, seemed to find more reasons to remain close to the ranch house. He moved the sick calf to a pen near the kitchen garden where Daisy often worked, explaining that it needed frequent attention. He took his meals later than the other hands, lingering afterward to help with dishes, a task that had previously been beneath his notice, according to Margaret's amused observations. One crisp November morning, as Daisy carefully descended the porch steps with a basket of mending, her foot slipped on a patch of early frost. She cried out, more from surprise than pain, as the basket went flying. Before she could fall, strong arms caught her from behind. Careful, Adam's voice said near her ear, his breath warm against her cheek. Steps get slick this time of year. Daisy found herself pressed against his chest, his arms secure around her waist. The baby chose that moment to deliver a vigorous kick, causing Adam to jerk slightly in surprise. Was that? Yes, Daisy laughed, despite her embarrassment at their proximity. He or she has been quite active lately. Adam didn't immediately release her, instead helping her regain her balance with careful attention. When she was steady, he bent to retrieve the scattered mending. You shouldn't be carrying heavy things, he admonished gently, placing the folded shirts back in the basket. It's hardly heavy, Daisy protested, and I can't just sit idle all day. Still, Adam lifted the basket himself. Where were you taking this? The porch swing. The light's better there for sewing. He nodded, carrying the basket to the indicated spot. Daisy followed, aware of his watchful gaze as she settled herself on the swing. Thank you, she said, reaching for the first shirt that needed mending. Instead of leaving, Adam sat beside her, the swing creaking slightly under his weight. Mind if I keep you company? Got some paperwork for the ranch that needs attention. Not at all, Daisy replied, surprised but pleased. He produced a small ledger from his jacket pocket and began reviewing figures, occasionally making notes with a pencil stub. They worked in companionable silence, the only sounds the creak of the swing, the scratch of his pencil, and the soft whisper of her needle through fabric. Gradually, Daisy became aware of a dull ache in her lower back. She shifted position, trying to find relief. Something wrong? Adam asked immediately, his attention sharp. Just the usual discomforts, she assured him. Dr. Bennett says it's normal at this stage. Adam studied her for a moment, then returned to his figures, though Daisy noticed he glanced at her more frequently. The ache persisted, occasionally intensifying before subsiding again. After an hour, it had become distracting enough that she set aside her mending. I think I'll go lie down for a while, she said, attempting to rise. Adam was on his feet instantly, offering his arm. Let me help you. As Daisy stood, a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen, causing her to gasp and clutch his arm tightly. Adam's expression shifted from concern to alarm. That didn't sound like the usual discomfort, he said, his voice tight. No, Daisy admitted, fear beginning to curl through her. I think it might be time. Adam's face paled visibly. The baby, but it's early. Only by a few weeks, Daisy tried to sound calmer than she felt. We should tell Margaret. Before she could take a step toward the door, another pain gripped her, stronger than the first. Daisy doubled over, a small cry escaping her lips. In one fluid motion, Adam swept her into his arms. No walking for you, he declared, carrying her into the house. Margaret, he called, his voice echoing through the rooms. Margaret, come quick. The older woman appeared from the kitchen, wiping flour from her hands. Her expression changed instantly as she took in the scene. Her pains have started, Adam explained, already moving toward the stairs. Where should I put her? Her room, Margaret directed, immediately taking charge. Then ride for the doctor. Elias can go for the midwife. Hurry now. Adam carried Daisy up the stairs as if she weighed nothing, his movements careful despite his obvious urgency. As he laid her gently on her bed, their eyes met, his filled with a mixture of concern and something deeper that made Daisy's breath catch. Don't be afraid, he said softly, his hand lingering on hers. I'll bring the doctor as fast as Maverick can run. I know you will, Daisy managed. Before another pain took her words away, Margaret bustled in with linens and hot water. Go on now, Adam. This is women's work. With a last look at Daisy, he strode from the room. Moments later, she heard the thunder of hoofbeats as he galloped toward town. The hours that followed were a blur of pain and fear for Daisy. The midwife, Mrs. Blackburn, arrived first, her capable hands and calm demeanor bringing some reassurance. Dr. Bennett followed shortly, having met Adam on the road. First babies take their time, Mrs. Blackburn assured her between contractions. But you're young and strong, you'll do fine. As evening fell, the pains intensified. Margaret and Mrs. Blackburn moved efficiently around the room, speaking in low voices while Dr. Bennett checked Daisy's progress periodically. You're doing well, he encouraged. Not much longer now. Through the haze of pain, Daisy became aware of voices outside her door, deeper voices that shouldn't have been there during what Margaret had called women's work. She recognized Adam's distinctive tone, tension evident even through the wooden door. She'll be all right, she heard Dr. Bennett say. Go get some rest, Prescott, nothing you can do here. I'm staying, came Adam's firm reply. Just let me know when there's news. The knowledge that he remained, keeping vigil outside her door, gave Daisy a strange comfort as she faced the most difficult hours of her life. Near midnight, after what seemed an eternity of pain, Dr. Bennett announced, It's time to push, Miss Jenkins. Your baby's ready to meet the world. With Margaret supporting her back and Mrs. Blackburn coaching her breathing, Daisy gathered her remaining strength. The pain peaked beyond anything she had imagined possible, tearing a scream from her throat that she was powerless to suppress. Then suddenly, blessed relief and the thin, outraged cry of a newborn filled the room. A girl, Dr. Bennett announced, his professional demeanor briefly giving way to a warm smile. A healthy baby girl. Tears streamed down Daisy's face as Mrs. Blackburn placed the tiny, red-faced infant on her chest. Hello, little one, she whispered, overwhelmed by the rush of love that flooded through her at the sight of her daughter's perfect features. After the afterbirth was delivered and both mother and child pronounced healthy, Dr. Bennett stepped out briefly. Daisy heard the murmur of male voices, then a muffled exclamation that could only have been Adam receiving the news. Margaret helped Daisy change into a fresh nightgown and settled the swaddled infant in her arms before saying, There's someone quite anxious to know you're both well. Do you feel up to a brief visitor? Daisy nodded, too exhausted for words but needing to see Adam's face. The door opened cautiously and Adam entered, his expression a mixture of awe and relief as he approached the bed. He'd removed his hat, and his hair was disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. You're all right, he said, his voice rough with emotion. We both are, Daisy confirmed, shifting the bundle in her arms so he could see the baby's face. Meet my daughter. Adam moved closer, perching carefully on the edge of the bed. He stared at the infant with undisguised wonder. She's perfect, he breathed, just like her mother. The simple compliment brought fresh tears to Daisy's eyes. "Thank you for everything you've done, for bringing me here, for getting the doctor. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat," Adam said with quiet intensity. His hand moved toward the baby, then hesitated. "May I?" At Daisy's nod, he gently touched the infant's tiny fist with one finger. To both their surprise, the baby's fingers uncurled and wrapped around his much larger one. "Strong grip," he noted, his voice suspiciously thick. "She's going to be a fighter like her mother." "I hope she won't need to fight too hard," Daisy said softly. Adam's eyes met hers, serious and intent. "Not if I have anything to say about it." The promise in those words hung between them, weighted with meaning. Before either could speak further, Margaret returned with tea. "That's enough visiting," she declared firmly. "Daisy needs rest, and you, Adam Prescott, need to let the poor doctor go home. The man's been up all night." Adam reluctantly withdrew his finger from the baby's grasp and stood. "I'll check on you tomorrow," he told Daisy. At the door, he paused. "Have you named her yet?" "Emma," Daisy replied. "Emma Grace Jenkins." A smile touched Adam's lips. "It suits her." After he left, Margaret helped Daisy settle the baby in the cradle beside her bed. "That man hasn't left your door since he returned with the doctor," she observed. Paced the hallway like an expectant father. Daisy's cheeks warmed at the implication. "He's just concerned because of his sister." Margaret hummed skeptically. "If you say so, dear." Too exhausted to analyze Margaret's knowing tone, Daisy drifted toward sleep, comforted by the soft breathing of her daughter nearby and the knowledge that Adam had stood guard through her ordeal. The days following Emma's birth passed in a haze of exhaustion and joy for Daisy. The baby proved to have healthy lungs and a hearty appetite, keeping her mother busy with frequent feedings. Margaret was an invaluable help, showing Daisy how to bathe and swaddle the infant properly and taking over household duties to allow the new mother time to recover. Adam maintained a respectful distance, but found reasons to visit the house several times daily. He would inquire after their welfare, sometimes bringing small gifts, wildflowers from the prairie, a tiny wooden horse he'd whittled during evening hours, a soft rabbit skin he'd tanned himself for the baby. "You don't need to bring something every time," Daisy told him one afternoon as he presented her with a book of poetry he'd purchased on his last trip to town. "I know," he replied simply. "I want to." As December arrived, bringing with it preparations for Christmas, Daisy gradually resumed some of her household duties, often with Emma sleeping contentedly in a basket nearby. The ranch hands delighted in the baby's presence, each trying to coax smiles from her when they came in for meals. "She's got them all wrapped around her little finger," Margaret observed as Billy made ridiculous faces at the infant during lunch one day. "Never seen such tough men turn to mush over 8 pounds of baby." "She does have a certain charm," Daisy agreed, watching her daughter's wide blue eyes track the cowboy's movements. "Speaking of charm," Margaret lowered her voice, "Adam's been asking about your plans again." Daisy's hand stilled on the dish she was drying. "What did you tell him?" "That he should ask you himself." Margaret gave her a meaningful look. "And I think he intends to. He's been meeting with Mr. Henderson every evening this week." Before Daisy could question this information, the object of their discussion entered the kitchen, stamping snow from his boots. "Ladies," he greeted them, removing his hat. His gaze immediately went to Emma, a smile softening his features. "And Miss Emma, how are we all today?" "Just fine," Margaret answered for them. Daisy was about to take a walk to get some fresh air. "Perhaps you'd escort her." "I can watch the little one." Daisy shot the older woman a startled look, having mentioned no such plans, but Margaret merely widened her eyes innocently. "I'd be happy to," Adam said, looking to Daisy for confirmation. Put on the spot, Daisy could hardly refuse. "Let me get my shawl." Minutes later, bundled against the December chill, she walked beside Adam toward a small rise behind the ranch house. The snow wasn't deep yet, just a dusting that crunched pleasingly beneath their boots. "Margaret says you've been meeting with Mr. Henderson," Daisy ventured when the silence between them stretched too long. Adam nodded, his breath forming small clouds in the cold air. "Been discussing some business matters, concerning the ranch, partly." He guided her around a rocky patch. "Also concerning my future." Daisy's heart skipped a beat. "Your future?" Adam stopped walking, turning to face her directly. "I've been putting money aside for years, Bought a parcel of land about 3 miles east of here last spring. Got a small cabin built, planning to expand it come spring." "Your own ranch?" Daisy asked, genuinely pleased for him. "That's the plan. Nothing grand to start, couple hundred acres, small herd, but good water rights and plenty of room to grow." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "Thing is, a ranch needs more than just cattle and land." "It does," Daisy agreed, uncertain where this was leading. Adam took a deep breath. "Daisy, I know this might seem sudden to you, though it isn't to me. I've thought about this every day since I found you at that depot." Her pulse quickened as he reached for her hands, holding them gently in his larger ones. "I'm not a man of fancy words," he continued, his voice gaining confidence. "But I know what I want and what I can offer. I want you and Emma to come with me to my ranch as my wife and daughter." Daisy's breath caught in her throat. "Adam, let me finish," he said quickly. "I know you're still healing from what Thomas did to you. I know Emma isn't mine by blood, but I've come to care for you both more than I thought possible. I want to give you a home, protection, my name. I want to be a father to Emma, watch her grow up strong and free on land that will someday be hers." Tears blurred Daisy's vision. "You don't have to do this out of obligation or pity." "Pity?" Adam looked genuinely startled. "Daisy, this isn't about pity, it's about love." The word hung between them, crystalline and perfect in the winter air. "I love you," he continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I think I started falling for you that first day, watching you fight back tears as I helped you onto Maverick. You were so brave, so determined despite everything, and every day since I've found more reasons to admire you, to want you in my life. But Emma, I already love her too," Adam interrupted gently. "From the moment I saw her tiny face, I knew I'd do anything to protect her." "Blood doesn't make a family, Daisy. Love does." Tears spilled freely down Daisy's cheeks now. "I never expected this, never thought I'd find someone who could accept us both." "Is that a yes?" Hope brightened Adam's eyes. "I care for you deeply," Daisy said carefully, "but marriage is serious. I need to be certain, for Emma's sake as well as my own." Adam nodded, disappointment visible but understanding evident. "I respect that. Take whatever time you need. My offer stands." He released her hands reluctantly. "Just know that every sunrise I watch, I'm wishing you were beside me to see it too." The simple sincerity of his words touched Daisy more deeply than any elaborate declaration could have. They walked back to the house in thoughtful silence, Adam maintaining a respectful distance that somehow felt more intimate than any physical closeness. At the porch steps, he paused. "I'll be heading out to my property tomorrow, checking on things. Won't be back till evening." "Be careful," Daisy found herself saying. "The weather looks unsettled." A smile touched his lips. "I will." That night, as Daisy nursed Emma before bed, she found herself contemplating Adam's proposal with increasing warmth. The thought of building a life with him, watching him teach Emma to ride and read, sharing quiet evenings by a fire in their own home, it created a longing she hadn't expected to feel again after Thomas's betrayal. "What do you think, little one?" she whispered to her drowsy daughter. "Would Adam make a good father for you?" Emma's only response was to nuzzle closer, her tiny hand resting trustingly against her mother's skin. Morning brought heavy clouds and the promise of snow. Daisy watched from the kitchen window as Adam rode out, his figure gradually disappearing into the grayness of the horizon. An inexplicable sense of unease settled over her as she turned back to her tasks. By midday, snow was falling steadily. By late afternoon, it had become a full blizzard, the wind howling around the eaves of the ranch house and visibility reduced to mere yards. Adam should have been back by now, Daisy fretted, peering out into the whiteness. Margaret joined her at the window, her own expression concerned. "He knows this country better than most, probably holed up in his cabin waiting out the worst of it. But what if he got caught on the trail?" Daisy couldn't shake her growing fear. "What if Maverick stumbled in a drift?" "Mr. Henderson's already sent Elias and Grady to check the line shacks," Margaret assured her. "If Adam's stranded, they'll find him." But as evening deepened into night with no sign of Adam or the search party, Daisy's anxiety intensified. Emma seemed to sense her mother's distress, fussing more than usual and refusing to settle. "Try to rest," Margaret urged as midnight approached. "There's nothing to be done until morning." Daisy nodded, taking Emma upstairs but knowing sleep would be impossible. From her window, she could see nothing but swirling snow illuminated by the faint glow of a lantern someone had hung on the porch as a beacon. As she rocked Emma, Daisy found herself praying with an intensity she hadn't felt since childhood. The thought of losing Adam before she had even told him her true feelings was unbearable. Dawn broke gray and forbidding, the storm having abated slightly but still limiting visibility. Daisy dressed quickly, leaving Emma in Margaret's care as she joined the men gathering in the kitchen. Mr. Henderson, who had returned from Helena just before the storm hit, was organizing search parties. "We'll need every available man," he was saying as Daisy entered. "Split into pairs, take emergency supplies. If this weather holds, we've got maybe 6 hours of daylight to find him." "I want to help," Daisy announced, causing all heads to turn toward her. "Miss Jenkins," Mr. Henderson began gently, "I understand your concern, but conditions out there are treacherous." "I know this land well enough now," she insisted, "and I'm stronger than I look." "It's not a question of strength," he countered. "It's about survival experience. These men know how to handle themselves if the storm worsens again." Before Daisy could argue further, a commotion outside drew everyone's attention. The kitchen door burst open, admitting a blast of cold air and 2 snow-covered figures supporting a third between them. "Found him," Elias called, his voice tight with effort. "About 2 miles out, horse had gone lame." Daisy's heart lurched as she recognized Adam's tall frame, even hunched between the 2 ranch hands. His face was alarmingly pale, lips tinged with blue, and he seemed barely conscious. "Get him by the fire," Mr. Henderson ordered, clearing space near the kitchen hearth. "Margaret, hot water and blankets. Billy, ride for the doctor." As the men lowered Adam onto a hastily arranged pallet, his eyes flickered open, immediately searching the room until they found Daisy. A ghost of a smile touched his blue-tinged lips. "Knew you'd be worried," he managed, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Had to get back." Daisy knelt beside him, heedless of the melting snow soaking her skirt. "Don't talk," she urged, helping Margaret remove his frozen outer clothing. "Save your strength." His hand caught hers weakly. "Need to tell you, in case—" "Don't you dare," Daisy interrupted fiercely. "Don't you dare say goodbye to me, Adam Prescott, not when I haven't given you my answer yet." A flicker of hope warmed his ice-pale eyes. "Your answer?" "Yes," she said simply, her voice breaking. "My answer is yes. I'll marry you, but you have to live, do you understand? You have to live for me and Emma." His fingers tightened slightly around hers. "Best reason I ever heard." Over the next hours, Daisy refused to leave Adam's side as the ranch women worked to warm him gradually. His boots were removed to reveal feet worryingly white with frostbite. His hands, which he'd managed to keep somewhat protected by his gloves, were less severely affected but still concerning. Dr. Bennett arrived by mid-afternoon, his examination thorough and his expression grave but not hopeless. "He's young and strong," he told Daisy privately, "but it was a close call. Another hour out there and we'd be having a very different conversation. Will he recover completely?" She asked, fear making her voice tremble. "Too soon to tell about his feet," the doctor admitted. "We'll know more in a few days. For now, it's warmth, rest, and prayer." Daisy nodded, returning to Adam's side where he had finally fallen into an exhausted sleep. Margaret brought Emma to her, and Daisy settled into a chair beside the makeshift bed, her daughter cradled in one arm while her free hand maintained contact with Adam. "You two belong together," Margaret observed softly. "I've thought so since the day he brought you home." "I was afraid to trust again," Daisy admitted. "After Thomas, I couldn't bear the thought of being hurt like that." "Adam isn't Thomas," Margaret said simply. "No," Daisy agreed, watching the steady rise and fall of Adam's chest. "He's nothing like him." Days passed with agonizing slowness as Adam's condition improved by small increments. Color returned to his face, and he was able to sit up and take broth by the second day. The worry about his feet remained, however, as sensation returned painfully, leaving him grimacing with discomfort that he tried to hide from Daisy. On the 4th day, Dr. Bennett pronounced the danger of amputation past. "You'll keep your toes, Prescott," he announced. "Though they'll be mighty sensitive to cold from now on." Relief flooded through Daisy at the news. That evening, with Adam propped up on pillows and finally allowed to hold Emma, who regarded him with solemn curiosity, they began to speak of their future together. The cabin will need expanding, Adam said, gently bouncing the baby on his lap. It's small but solid, built it myself last summer. I don't need anything fancy, Daisy assured him, just a home for us. You'll have that and more, he promised. Land's good for growing. Thought we might plant an orchard come spring, maybe some vegetables, spot for chickens too. The domestic details, so ordinary yet so precious, brought tears to Daisy's eyes. It sounds perfect. Adam's expression softened as he looked at her. Almost lost my chance with you. Stuck out there in that storm, all I could think about was getting back, telling you how I felt before it was too late. I think I knew, Daisy admitted. I just wasn't ready to acknowledge it. And now? His eyes held a vulnerability she'd never seen before. In answer, Daisy leaned forward and gently pressed her lips to his. The kiss was brief but filled with promise, a seal on the future they would build together. By Christmas Eve, Adam was well enough to join the household in the parlor, though he still needed assistance walking. The ranch house had been transformed with evergreen boughs, red ribbons, and candles that cast a warm glow over the gathered family. Mr. Henderson raised a glass of cider, his weathered face creased in a smile. To new beginnings, he toasted, nodding toward Adam and Daisy, who sat side by side on the settee, Emma sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms. And to family, Margaret added, her eyes suspiciously bright. Later, as the celebrations wound down and household members drifted toward bed, Adam pulled a small package from his pocket. Not much of a Christmas gift, he said apologetically, handing it to Daisy. Had it ordered before the storm. Grady picked it up in town yesterday. Curious, Daisy handed Emma to Margaret and carefully unwrapped the paper to reveal a small wooden box. Inside, nestled on a scrap of velvet, lay a simple gold band. It's beautiful, she whispered, touched by the gesture. Thought we might make it official, Adam suggested. Pastor Williams is holding services tomorrow. He could marry us after if you're willing. Christmas Day. Daisy's eyes widened. But your feet, you can barely walk. I can stand long enough to say I do, he assured her with a grin. Besides, I've waited long enough to make you my wife. Margaret, who had been pretending not to listen, gave up all pretense. A Christmas wedding? Oh, we'll need to prepare. Your blue dress would be perfect, Daisy, and I have a lace collar that would dress it up beautifully. As the older woman bustled off, already planning, Adam laughed softly. Sorry, guess there's no stopping her now. I don't mind, Daisy said honestly. It's nice to have someone excited for us. Adam took her hand, his expression growing serious. I know this isn't the romantic courtship you deserved. If you want to wait, have a proper engagement. No, Daisy interrupted firmly. I don't need that. I just need you, and Emma needs a father. Tomorrow is perfect. His smile was answer enough. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. The world outside transformed into a glistening wonderland of white. The ranch hands, excited about the unexpected wedding, had cleared a path to the small church in town and decorated a wagon with evergreen boughs for the bride's transportation. Dressed in her best blue dress, enhanced by Margaret's lace collar and a hastily assembled bouquet of holly and pine, Daisy felt a nervous excitement she hadn't expected. This wedding, simple, heartfelt, surrounded by people who had become family in such a short time, was nothing like the grand affair she had once imagined with Thomas. Yet it felt infinitely more meaningful. Adam waited for her at the front of the church, standing without assistance, though she could tell it cost him some discomfort. His Sunday suit had been brushed free of dust, his hair neatly combed, and his expression as she walked toward him was one of such undisguised adoration that Daisy's heart swelled with answering love. Emma, dressed in a new white gown Margaret had somehow produced, gurgled contentedly in the older woman's arms as Pastor Williams began the ceremony. The vows were traditional but spoken with profound sincerity. When Adam slipped the gold band onto Daisy's finger, his hands were steady, his eyes never leaving hers. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder, Pastor Williams declared, beaming at the couple. You may kiss your bride, Mr. Prescott. Adam's kiss was gentle but held a promise of deeper passion to come, causing Daisy to blush as the small congregation cheered enthusiastically. The celebration afterward at the double circle was joyous and relaxed, with food, music, and an atmosphere of genuine happiness. As evening approached, Margaret discreetly informed the newlyweds that she and Mr. Henderson had prepared Adam's old room at the end of the hall for them, having moved his things there while they were at church. "Emma's cradle is in there too," she added with a wink. "Though I'm happy to keep her with me tonight if you'd prefer some privacy." Daisy's blush deepened, but Adam saved her from responding. "Thank you, Margaret," he said simply, "for everything." Later, after Emma had been fed and settled in her cradle, Daisy found herself alone with her husband for the first time. Despite her nervousness, there was a rightness to being with Adam that dispelled her anxiety. His patience and tenderness as they discovered each other confirmed what she already knew, that this man, who had literally lifted her from despair and promised her forever, would cherish her always. Winter gradually gave way to spring, bringing new growth to the land and new developments to the Prescott family. Adam's recovery was complete by March, allowing him to begin work on expanding their cabin in earnest. Daisy, Emma strapped to her back, often accompanied him to their future home, offering suggestions and helping where she could. By May, the cabin had doubled in size with a proper bedroom, a kitchen with a cast iron stove Adam had splurged on, and a small nursery for Emma. The Hendersons gifted them with furniture, while the ranch hands contributed handcrafted items, a rocking chair from Grady, curtains sewn by Elias's wife, a beautifully carved cradle from Billy, who had revealed unexpected talent with wood. On a warm day in late May, just as wildflowers began carpeting the prairie in vibrant colors, Adam drove the wagon containing their belongings and his small family to their new home. Emma, now 6 months old and increasingly curious about the world, babbled happily as they approached the cabin nestled against a backdrop of cottonwood trees. "Welcome home, Mrs. Prescott," Adam said, helping Daisy down from the wagon. "It's not much yet, but it's perfect," Daisy interrupted, taking in the neat cabin with its newly planted garden, the small corral where several horses grazed, and the sweeping view of mountains in the distance. "Absolutely perfect." Carrying Emma on one hip, she climbed the steps to the porch Adam had insisted on building so you can sit outside and watch the sunset. The door swung open easily, revealing the simple but comfortable interior they had prepared together. Adam followed with their trunks, setting them down before coming to stand beside his wife and daughter. "Happy?" he asked softly. In answer, Daisy turned to him, her free arms sliding around his waist. "More than I ever thought possible." As years passed, the Prescott Ranch flourished under Adam's careful management and Daisy's practical support. Emma grew from a babbling infant to a curious toddler to a spirited young girl with her mother's blonde hair and a love for horses that delighted her father. She was joined by siblings, first a brother, James, born almost exactly 9 months after their move to the ranch, then another sister, Sarah, 2 years later. On the 5th anniversary of their wedding, Adam surprised Daisy by having her parents' daguerreotype, which she had always kept carefully wrapped in her trunk, professionally framed and hung in a place of honor in their now expanded home. "So they can watch their grandchildren grow," he explained, holding her close as she wiped away tears of gratitude. That evening, with their children finally asleep and the house quiet, they sat together on the porch swing Adam had built the previous summer. "Did I ever tell you," he said, his arm around her shoulders, "that when I first saw you at that depot, crying and alone, I almost rode past?" Daisy looked up at him, surprised. "You never mentioned that." "Was on my way back from delivering a message to the station master," Adam continued. "Had important business waiting at the ranch, but something made me stop." He paused, his gaze distant with memory. "When I lifted you onto Maverick, felt how you were trembling but still holding yourself together with such dignity, I knew." "Knew what?" Daisy asked softly. Adam's eyes, still as blue and direct as the day they met hers with unwavering certainty. "That I'd found the woman I wanted to spend my life with, that whatever happened, I'd protect you and that baby you were carrying, even though Emma wasn't yours." "She's been mine from the moment I first held her," Adam said firmly. "Blood doesn't make a family, remember? Love does." Daisy leaned into his embrace, watching the stars emerge in the vast Montana sky. "I thank God every day that you stopped at that depot." "So do I," Adam murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "So do I." As the years continued to pass, the legend of how Adam Prescott had found his wife crying at the depot and lifted her into his saddle became a favorite story in Wildwood. Embellished with each telling, it nevertheless retained its essential truth that sometimes the greatest journeys begin with an act of kindness, and the most enduring promises are those made not in grand gestures, but in quiet moments of human connection. For Daisy and Adam, the promise of forever made that day had been kept through hardships and joys alike. Their ranch prospered, their children thrived, and their love deepened with each passing season. And on summer evenings, long after their hair had turned silver and their grandchildren played in the yard where Emma had once taken her first steps, they could still be found sitting together on their porch swing, hands clasped, watching the sun set over the land that had witnessed their journey from strangers to beloved companions sharing one extraordinary life.